Hey guys, welcome to a long overdue episode of Chewing the Fat with myself and Dean Kilby. It's been ages since not ages since I've spoken to you, but ages since I've seen you, definitely. You're just out and about doing so much stuff, it's ridiculous.
No, it's insane. This year, 2023, I've been traveling overseas every month this year. I've been overseas somewhere.
Yeah, not just once a month, no, all month.
Oftentimes, yeah, multiple trips in the same month. Yeah, each month.
Various places. Yeah, I mean, it's obvious you haven't even got time to put some talcum powder on your head to cut down on the shine.
It's very shiny.
Normally me, I'm normally copping the dude. One of my mates calls me Exxon Valdez because I'm normally just oozing that much, stuff out of my head. But I mean, that was actually a comment he made the other day. You know what? Since you've lost the weight and you're way more healthy, you just ooze less.
Oh man. And the last time I saw you, you just need to handle your nasal hairs and hair in the ears, and then I think you'll be fine.
Yeah, I did that this morning. I shaved it.
Presentation's important. That's what matters to people. And when you're comfortable with your presentation, you're more freed up to be out here with people. So it does make a difference. It's not such a it's not just about your own vanity. It actually makes a difference to others around you, because then you're free to just be with them. It's what we often refer to as charismatic. You're just there. You're not self-concerned. You're not on your way somewhere. You're just there in the presence of another human being, and that gets experienced by the people around you. So, handle those nasal hairs.
Otherwise, people get really self-conscious about theirs, and they're sitting there.
Oh, they will now. Those listening to this, they'll be like, really?
Yeah, or you overcompensate by becoming an influencer and making it all about body positivity.
Oh, dangerous territory there, Trevor.
Dangerous territory there. Only because I've seen a fair bit of that recently.
I bet.
Yeah,
Stop spending so much time on social media. Get out here in life, in real life.
Yeah, yeah, good point. The last conversation we had on the phone recently was about one client in particular. And it's interesting because in a lot of the world we're in as coaches, you get sort of caught up in what's not working a lot, and it becomes hard work. And do I really want to do this anymore? And the people that come to us want to get healthy, and then it's like they don't, and I'm more interested in them getting healthy and they're not. So what's the point? And blah blah blah. And that's for us to deal with and manage and have a breakthrough in for us as much as it is for them. And there's also people that come to us that are just like the one we spoke about the other day, who's been dealing with major gut or digestive issues for many, many years. And it turns out fertility issues, we found out since, and only within a short period of time have actually, began to start to reincorporate foods that it was just off limits to them because it either had them break out in hives or eczema, or had them bloated and gassy, and they'd just been to various specialists over a long period of time trying to find the answer. And 2 weeks into this protocol, to our surprise as much as to hers, it was just like, I can eat garlic again and I'm not blowing up. What's the deal with that side of things? Like, I mean, you spoke with her initially. What was your thoughts on all that leading into before she started?
Yeah, so this is someone who presented with a number of symptoms and trying to sort them out over a really long space of time. And the initial conversation I had with both her and her husband was quite an extensive, lengthy conversation. I like to take the time to really listen and get a sense of what the experience has been like for people, more so than just trying to come up with a more or less accurate kind of diagnosis of sorts. You want to understand. Oh goodness, hang on a second.
being around the world without being around the world.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. So my phone just went off. Oh, let's get superstitious here. 11:11. So my phone my phone just went off, and someone's calling. So how do I do this? Let's put this on airplane mode so no one bothers me, because it cuts off the Zoom on my screen.
Oh,
Yeah. So anyway, I was saying it's always good to grant people the time and listen in a way that maybe they haven't experienced being listened to before, and give them the space and the opportunity to just communicate. And you often get a sense of the kind of threat that people are living inside of. And when you're constantly in a state of threat, people might experience it as anxiety, but even subtle situations with regards to even the food that they might eat, that they approach food with a great deal of caution, and hesitancy and worry. So it makes a big difference when you can interact with someone in a way that it allows them to experience being in safe hands. I mean, in the majority of cases when people are sick, maybe less so these days with the, the access to Google, Dr. Google, people would walk into a doctor's office wanting a degree of certainty. They want someone to be able to tell them that it's going to be okay, that we've got a solution to this, that we're willing to work with you shoulder to shoulder through the challenge together. And, ideally we won't give up until you've got an improvement in the quality of life that you really want, or at least some way towards what you really, really want. And also the freedom to be able to state what they really, really want. A lot of people just, not to make false promises, but if you give people enough space and it's safe enough, they'll say what they really want, not suppress it to just, okay, what I think I might be able to have, what could be possible for me. So I think the outcome has come about very, very quickly, and we've seen this many times before, but it's multifactorial. It's not just one thing. And the first thing that we need to ensure is that we take the threat away and they feel safe. And that can make an enormous difference. I mean, physiologically, if you're just constantly threatened and your sympathetic nervous system's just going off tap, you're just so highly strung, everything's on edge, everything. And it starts to skew how your body works in a negative way or an unworkable way, and to be able to understand and bring distinction to what is happening. So it's not just a black box or this, an experience that's inexplicable and you're kind of at a loss with it all and you have no power with regards to it. Once it's distinct, then and only then, when it's distinct, and you do that by bringing distinction to the mix, and I'll get to that in a moment, then you can have power over and with what's actually happening. So
what's the distinction?
Yeah, I remember speaking to her and saying, listen, I'm not sure exactly, but let's see if we can bring everything back down to baseline. Just let's have a look at what happens, what your body does when we bring it all back to baseline. So then we can have a better idea of what actually might make the difference. And oftentimes your body just sorts itself out when you bring everything back down to baseline, right? And I told her it would happen fast. It would be within 3 weeks, we'll have a good idea of where to go next. So, and I think that's the point we're at now, right? And you've got the recent update. She said there has been multiple improvements.
Yeah, she's incorporated garlic again, and she's tried broccoli and I think cauliflower. But it's like people that have been dealing with that for so long, as soon as there's a window open for this is getting better, it's just like, all right, let's just see how better this am I fixed? And just try as much as possible to go back. So, we've just dialed it back a little and just let those adaptations happen over time and then reintroduce more as we go along. But so far, she's just amazed at something so relatively simple without necessarily being an answer to her issue is solving the issue.
Yeah, exactly. And that's hence the importance of the structure, the supportive structure of having a coach to guide you through that process. Because whenever you're dealing with an issue of ill health or unworkability in your physiology and it's impacting your quality of life, you need someone to support you through it, because you just got to be straight with yourself of the fact that you can't be trusted with your body to make the key decisions as you progress through the various alterations, changes, and adaptations that happen along the way. So when you're in pain and you're in discomfort and you're tired and all of these phenomena that you might experience, that's the background noise that kind of skews your ability to hear the biological signals for what they actually are. And when you've been resigned to and stuck in a state of unworkability for a really long period of time, you get used to it and you lose, well, you become ill-practiced in being able to listen to the biological signals and knowing exactly what to do with them. It's akin to standing in sewage for a really long period of time. There are people that work in sewage plants and they're used to it, or pig farms or whatever it might be, where the smell is just horrific. And it is possible, and this is what people need to understand, it is actually possible to get used to standing in sewage. And this is what's great about being a coach. Having a coaching structure and being coached is not comfortable. To be coachable is a real, it takes an enormous amount of courage and willingness and maturity, because when you're being coached, the coach is someone who's going to challenge you, and you've got your comfortable states of survival, and then a coach is telling you to do stuff that you don't really want to do. And, it's a pain in the ass being coached, but it is actually what makes the difference if you commit yourself to being coachable. And more powerfully than that is if you can create a context for yourself to have your coach win. Rather than being that spoiled brat going, you're the coach, it's your job to make me win. Oh, I'm not satisfied with your coaching and your services. And it's like, oh, for fuck's sakes, pardon the language, but really grow up.
I don't agree with what you're saying.
No, I don't agree. Well, I don't agree. Well, I don't care. You're fat and unwell. How's it going to go? Do you want to reverse your metabolic syndrome or not? If not, let's quit this. You go die of a heart attack in a few years' time. I'm not going to lose sleep over it because I know that I gave my best at this. You're the one that quit. So when people don't fail, it's like this protocol to accomplish like just basic stuff that people come to us with. For example, concerns about their presentation. They're not happy being this big, right? And let's be straight about it. Yes, there's the health aspects, but that's not what destroys people's view of themselves. It's how they appear to themselves, the image of themselves. On top of that, then there's what they're limited to be able to do and how they can participate in life and how that's constrained. So we want to handle people's presentation, but, just in that respect or that regard, you can't fail at this. Just do as we say and you'll get the results. The only time people don't get the results is if they quit. Bottom line. And people aren't straight about that. They're like, oh, it failed or it didn't work for me. No, you quit. You're a quitter. Be straight about that. And the moment you can acknowledge that you're a quitter in life, then enough space, at least there's some authenticity to go, you know what? I didn't fail at that. I actually quit too early. There's some authenticity. And with that comes a bit of power. A little bit of space opens up where you can say to yourself, you know what? Do I really want to be a quitter? No, I could create being some other way, because it's not like you decided to be a quitter. You didn't create, a future of, when I grow up, I really want to be a quitter in life. No, that's just like part of your humanity. And it's not any indictment on the individual. No, it's just part of their humanity. And that's what there is to practice mastering, is if you can recognize those aspects of your humanity, and then you can have power over them, then you can create something other than being a quitter. What could that look like? And that's the journey that this protocol is. And, you know, for this particular individual that you're speaking of, I mean, she was just so stressed. And, you know, we've got a clinical advisor within the Simplr Health clinical advisory team, Dr. Olivia Lessler, and she's really, really well versed in the the psycho-neuroimmunology interface. And so psycho, like, you know, in the medical realm, they speak in psychology. I don't. I speak in ontology and phenomenology, and that's maybe a topic for a different day. But the psycho-neuro, so how does the psychology and the neurophysiology impact your immune system and generate inflammation and create, in the context of inflammation, more unworkability in your body? And how can that be tapped into and reversed? And, you know, she goes deep in the weeds with these toll-like receptors that get activated and cause havoc in your body and prevent certain ordinarily normal physiological functioning when you're in a state of threat or stress, fright, whatever it might be. So just being in an environment that cares, that they trust, that comes with scientific distinction, that is affordable, that we're really straightforward about how the approach may work. We know what we're good at, and we know what we're not good at, and we don't tap into it. So it creates an environment of safety inside which someone can surrender to it and surrender to the protocol and just do things the way it is designed to be done. And that seems pretty straightforward and obvious, but, you know, you deal with human beings, you'll realize that human beings just don't like doing things the way that they're designed to be done, even if there's sufficient evidence to say that every single time, if you do it the way that it's designed to be done, it'll work for you and you'll get what you want. They still want to tinker with it. It's like, you know, screw the decades of clinical experience and the thousands of cases that provide the scientific evidence and the hundreds of geniuses that have come up with the design of this. It's like, no, I know better, because my thoughts and feelings and opinions and what I consider is valuable is counter to what you're telling me. It's like, you know what? Go die of a heart attack then. Free up that oxygen for someone who's actually going to take care of their health and utilize and maximize this opportunity of being alive to get up to something bigger than themselves and make a difference in the world. And that's the harsh reality. It's brutal. Yeah. But if you want to make a difference to your health and be out here, rather than being so concerned about your own lot in life and in your own thoughts and feelings, and it's all about your own survival, well, guess what? That mechanism already exists. Your concern for your own survival is a default way of being. That's all, every cell in your body, the way that your central nervous system evolved is all about surviving that next moment. So your whole existence is just about survival. It's not about what's possible. It's not about creating a condition of inspiration and being up to something bigger than yourself. No, it's just about, like, you know, how can I feel more right and just in my own view, and everybody else has to comply with that. It's like, you know, grow up. There's Dean Kilby's rant for the day.
Luckily, it's all water off a duck's back, and you don't let shit like that get to you. It's obvious.
No, not at all. It builds up and accumulates until you go, hey, can we do a chewing the fat episode? And then it all comes out on these Zoom sessions. No, but the key is like when people do get that for themselves, what's on the other side of it is so freaking moving and inspiring. And I'm just left in awe of who people are when they generate the courage to be that way, because, and then to see and experience and be there when the magic happens and when that threat disappears, and you give people a structure and there's predictability to the structure, and they've got the support and the weekly opportunities to communicate. then inflammation reduces, the sympathetic nervous system dampens down, the parasympathetic nervous system fires back up again and does its job. And, you know, things alter, the gut microbiome reconstitutes. Obviously, there's a reset when you put someone into ketosis. You know, the ketone bodies themselves have some intercellular signaling properties directly to the T regulatory cells of your immune system, and it dampens down that hyperimmune response. And then when inflammation is reduced from the brain, it can function better and it can start sorting things out in the rest of your body. And it happens fast, but what it takes to get to that point is a high degree of maturity and commitment and willingness to allow other people to contribute to you.
I think one of the great things too about what we're doing is that the people that are in that world of, like, I've just been dealing with whatever issue it is for a long, long time, and it can be just the health and weight loss and metabolic dysfunction side of things. One, in a very small time frame, as you said, there's drastic changes that happen, and then they become different people. Like the lady we're talking about right now is just, everything is exciting and, you know, joyous to her, from protein bars that are available to, oh my God, I can't believe I went and did this. Everything's just lit up now for her, not just, oh, I don't get bloated and burst into hives when I eat broccoli. Like, that's just a great thing, but it's opened up the doors for all these other things to be exciting and be up for more life.
Yeah, there really is a rejuvenation effect, not just in terms of your like the physiology from the neck down. You know, people experience the rejuvenation effect with regards to their energy levels. Obviously, that's an obvious one people experience. There's a rejuvenation effect with sexual function. You know, people's sexual vitality improves. You know, erectile dysfunction can be restored. Vaginas re-lubricate, sex drive increase, all this sort of stuff, right? But also cognitively, people start experiencing what you're talking to, is that sort of state of curiosity and the ability to be in wonderment. And remember when you're a kid and you're staring up at the night sky and you're just in that state of wonderment? What happened to those experiences? No, as an adult, you're just like, you know everything. You know this, you know them, you know if you say this, they're going to respond that way. You know how to get from A to B. You just know how it's going to go. You hear it in people's language sometimes. There's just like zero space for any alternative opportunity or possibility. It's like, oh, I know how it's going to go. I know them. They won't blah. It's like, you don't know your ass from a hole in the ground. That's why you're an asshole, right? A righteous one at that. No, it's like, what happened to that young state of being? And when you reduce inflammation in your brain and you take the threat away, so that threat, you got to remember that those neuronal brain patterns that got created once upon a time, these are past derived neuronal brain patterns where something traumatic happened or it was upsetting or whatever. There was a lot of emotional biochemistry. And you say to yourself, based on, you know, there's what happened, but then there's your interpretation of what happened, your story. And based on that story, because it gets very collapsed. So now your view or your idea of what happened is not what actually happened. It's just sourced in your story, which is never 100% accurate. You create some decision based on that, on how to survive the threat of that in the future. And that's what the human brain does. It's a prediction machine. So it's always predicting what's going to happen in the future such that you can be better prepared to survive it and make those fundamental decisions, all geared towards survival. But the future is as yet unwritten. There's nothing there in the future. There is no future. The future itself is a story. And all you've got to tell the future story with is the past. So people keep bringing the past into the present future. And the action potential threshold on those neuronal brain patterns derived from the past gets lowered. So all it takes is a little bit of perception, like a few photons to enter the retina, hit the retina in the back of your eye, and the brain fills in the rest of the story. Hang on, my phone's done it again.
I can see.
People are ringing me via WhatsApp, and so hang on. Even though I've turned the, I've put it on airplane mode. I mean,
I can still see you though, so you haven't blacked out.
yeah. Okay, good. That's good. So, when that action potential threshold lowers, it fires very readily. This is when, we might say, oh, they've triggered. Well, yeah, they're triggered. But when we say someone's triggered, we think that, oh, that's on them. That's their lack of
Emotion.
control. No, I mean, it's a survival mechanism. You've got this almond-shaped bit of brain matter in, your midbrain, your reptilian brain. It's called an amygdala. It hijacks the rest of your brain. Because in that moment, if there's a sufficient amount of threat, every ounce of your being needs to be invested in the survival of that threat. And you experience it when you get in an argument with someone and you get triggered, and it's like you have to take yourself away, and you come back and you apologize profusely. And it's like, oh, I'm sorry, it had nothing to do with you. It was just like you reminded me of my father, or, whatever it is. There it is. That's the piece of the past, right? And your brain doesn't know the difference. So if you take the threat away, then the action potential threshold raises. Those past derived brain patterns don't fire as readily. Now your brain is more plastic. It doesn't have to keep going down those, well-wired pathways in your brain. It's a bit more freed up, and you can create new synaptic connections in your brain. This is the malleability, or what we might refer to as brain plasticity.
Mm.
Now, it gets even better than that. Not only is your brain more plastic and allows you the space and freedom to be more creative and curious and fascinated with things, right? Then you learn a lot faster, right? And not only that, any new transformations and learnings, it happens a hell of a lot faster and it sticks. So in the neuroscientific world and in the realm of clinical neurosurgery and neuroscience, there are some proponents that call this approach psychosurgery.
Right.
Yeah, where you can, instead of cutting a person's brain open, because you and I, we don't have access to our brain. I can't stick my fingers in there and tweak those neurons, that every neuron is connected to every other neuron, either directly or indirectly. So there's an unfathomable number of neuronal connections, synaptic connections, right? And I can't stick my fingers in there to tweak it. And the neurons that are there to determine how we perceive the world and the neurons that determine our actions are interrelated. They're connected. And there's some evidence that we are that I think first, then I act. So people don't act until they've thought about it a lot. By the way, thinking about stuff like that makes no difference to the action. You just got to take the action. But there's actual scientific evidence that can demonstrate that the neurons that determine your actions can fire before the neurons that determine any perception about what's happening.
Right.
Okay. In other words, you are not required.
Yeah.
Right.
Which brings me to another topic and it was your reply to my response to the article you sent me was like, dude, we get this already. And I was like, yeah, I know. But when you hear it like that, it was just a totally new way of hearing it, where that, neuroscientist at Harvard or whatever he was saying that, he's over years and years and years of study and experiments and blah, blah, blah. He's determined that we have no free will. But
there is no free will. Yes.
Mind-blowing for some people, because I mean, even religion for millions or thousands of years has been based on the fact that we've been given free will, and here's this guy saying, no, it doesn't really exist.
And to whatever degree that's true and real, who knows? But that neuroscientist, neurobiologist from Stanford, yeah, that's what he determined after 45 years of studying this stuff.
Mm.
And now that isn't to say that free will isn't a possibility.
Yeah.
Now, this is the paradox. It's only when you get for yourself that there is no free will, that free will becomes available as a possibility.
Like that Big Wreck lyric I sent you.
Yeah, remind me what that lyric is.
Oh, I can't remember what it was now.
You're on the spot now.
Yeah. We're powerless until we realize we're useless or something. That was the idea of it.
Yeah. And it was such a brilliant lyric. I remember when you sent that to me and I was just like, man, there it is again. Many, many years ago, I was developing as a transformational performance coach. And, for those who don't know me, I used to spend a lot of time on stage in front of a lot of people every week, for a really long time, not like 20-minute presentations or anything like that. It was like 3-hour blocks on stage every week for a really long time. So anyway, as part of my development process, one of the things that I really was challenged by, and I didn't know, it was kind of hidden from my view, is just how arrogant and cocky I was. Cockiness is not a bad thing, nor is arrogance. To be a leader in the world, you need a little bit of a chip on your shoulder. But, in many instances, my arrogance was just not appropriate or workable. And I remember being told one day publicly during a training program, one of the coaches said to me, "Dean, you haven't yet discovered you're a throwaway." It's like, how dare you? Like, I'm a big deal, and you should be so lucky that I'm here, and all that sort of stuff. It's like, no, you're a throwaway. And you can't be like available and present with the significance that you really want, and that creates the opportunity to make a difference to people at the magnitude that you're committed to, until you get that you're just a throwaway. I mean, you're a speck of dust on a rock that just circulates around the universe. And who cares? It's like, I was born and only a handful of people cared, and I'll die and only a handful of people will care. And after a short period of time, no one will care at all. You know what I mean? It's like, when you can own your insignificance, then there's some real power in being able to create something and impact the world in a way that has some significance.
Mm.
So, when you're threatened, your brain can't function in this way. Like, it's such a limiting constraint on what's possible and what you can create and do in the world.
And then there's also the biochemistry that we create or provide with the protocol to assist in all of that, with the reductions in inflammation and the brain fog that people don't experience and the clearer head they have and all that sort of stuff too as well. So it sort of all impacts each other and compounds, if you like.
Yeah. Well, that's our target market, is big people with big lives.
Mm.
And if their health and well-being and lack of vitality is a constraint on who they want to generate themselves as in the world, then we're committed to supporting them to sort out that constraint on their health and vitality, such that they can just truly fly and fulfill on what they really want. And what's even more exciting for us is the things that they discover that they didn't even know that they wanted, that they didn't even realize was possible or available for them. And then they start moving down those pathways. And it's just absolutely thrilling, with the curiosity and the sense of wonderment and excitement of a child again. But this time round, with the maturity, the sense of responsibility, with the integrity and the discipline that they've been able to develop whilst working with us. That allows for that wisdom that carries them forward into uncharted territories. And then the future that people are living into becomes compelling. Mm. And a lot of the time, it's not a comfortable future either. Because that's...
So many of our clients I've been noticing lately, they either resist getting to the target weight because there's a threat to, once I'm done, what do I do then? Like, am I going to be, I'll be on my own at some point. Now, am I going to be able to sustain this long term? And then they sort of forget what you just said then. And we've got to remind them of that and create who they have become for themselves over that period of time in being reliable for themselves. And so it's like a no-brainer versus the threat of, I'm going to be on my own. What do I do then? And trying to stay in the structure as long as possible because they're never quite ready to go alone.
I know. That would be, imagine if you got to the end of grade 6 and you were terrified to step up into high school and you're like, I'm not sure if I good grade 6. Just let me have another crack at it. And
people, they're just like, you're holding me back. What?
and then the same thing with high school. No, our job as coaches is to ensure 3 predominant breakthroughs for people. And these are contextual breakthroughs. So it's not like you break through and then you're done. I mean, there's practices and you have to continue practicing. It's not like, if you're training for a sport and you go to a couple of training sessions during the week such that you can play the game optimally at the weekend. No, life doesn't work that way. In life, the practice is the game itself. And so we set people up daily practices, weekly practices, monthly practices, 6 monthly practices, yearly practices. And you got to practice it with a certain degree of discipline over a long enough period of time inside the commitment of mastery. And I say mastery, not mastering, because you never arrive anywhere, right? So if you're there coaching someone to cause breakthroughs in participation, that's the predominant first breakthrough. You have to cause a breakthrough in participation. I mean, just starting with us is a breakthrough in participation. And it's a breakthrough every week. And each stage to go from phase 1 through the transitioning phase into the stabilization phase. Then you're in the maintenance phase. And it's like people think maintenance is like steady state. No, like how do you maintain optimal health and vitality inside the challenge of being up to something bigger than yourself? In fact, you need a bigger context for your life that gives purpose for why keep your body and brain in optimal shape. I mean, in optimal shape for what? Just so you feel a little bit more comfortable about yourself lying on the couch doing nothing?
A lot. It's like, I know what to do now. I don't plan on putting the weight back on. So if I do, going back into phase, like, you didn't plan on putting it on in the first place.
In the first place. Exactly. So there's got to be that constant state of challenge, but how can you develop yourself to be a bigger human being, not in physicality, but in being, in the face of the challenges? And if things are, if you're bored or whatever, you got to create a bigger game, and often, I mean, I experience it too. It's like, bloody hell, how big a game does my game have to get? Far out. And why is it up to me? And why do I have to keep doing this? And, it's like, well, I remember you said to me once, this is the moment when, the student becomes the teacher and you kind of surrender to your environment. I can't remember. I was complaining to you about my participation in something. And what did you say? I that's right. I said, so once again, I'm the one that always has to transform and be the bigger person. And then you said, well, apparently that's the price you pay for being extraordinary or something like that. It's like, damn it. Yeah. Okay. I mean, I shut up pretty quickly after that.
But it's, you get it at 100% at the same time, because it just keeps showing up at different, not all the time, but at some point, it's just human nature. You just go, I see it in my marriage all the time. It's just like, I've got to do this again. And then you've got, voices around you saying, I wouldn't put up with that shit, like blah, blah, blah. And, there subsequently, or also not married anymore, which is something to take note of in their approach. But it just,
that's where often lessons come from. But to that point, you can hear and get agreement for an inauthentic point of view.
Yeah.
But it, because it doesn't give you any more power in that situation or in that moment. Yeah, you get agreement and you can kind of use that to create some logic to be justified and right in your experience and point of view, but it doesn't give you any power. And then
it actually fuels the issue, is what it does. It makes the actual worse. Exactly right.
And there could be one voice in 100 that says, wacko, what do you know? It turns out, once again, maybe you're the asshole. And it's like, you know what? That's the one it's uncomfortable to hear. You don't want to hear it, but oftentimes it's the voice that makes the difference.
I mean, that's, remember back in the day when you were hammering me all the time to talk to my wife, Alana, about, various things. And it was just like, I just can't seem to find out what the issue is. She really just doesn't love me like she's supposed to. And that's absolutely true. And then at some point I was talking to her on the phone at work and saying, I just don't know what this is. Dean keeps saying, I've got to look at this, and I've got to look at that. And it's like, I just can't. And then as I was talking, it was just, boom, it hit me. Me. Once that hit me, new worlds opened up, and that's why I got married after 20 years of being with her. Once I realized the issue was me, and back to that lyric again, until I realized that it's me's the issue and I'm the powerless one, or I'm the one fueling the things. Until it's that way, you've got no access to shifting what's actually there.
Yeah. If you can be that brutally straight with yourself, the I, me, my phenomenon loses significance.
Mm.
And if you can give up the defense of your point of view for whatever it is that you're, standing right about, then some space opens up where something else might be possible. The experience of love, of being connected, of creating a future in partnership with people, and having a sense of ease and peace of mind. And and this is what becomes available. Sorry, say that.
It's your life without the circumstances ever changing. That's why I think, when we talk to people about this, they're just like, yeah, but that's not going to change the way she is. She still does this and she still does that. Nothing changed. But I got that it was me causing the issue. And once I'd cleaned that up and got that out of the way, the same thing she did looked completely different.
Yeah. That's the power of, and the Simplr Health program, for example, or protocol, we designed it inside the framework of a biophenomenological approach. So yes, there's all the science, and we can go deep in the weeds with the science, but the phenomenological aspect of it, like, you're a phenomena, your wife is a phenomena, or you're a phenomena and food is a phenomena and your weight is a phenomena. And there's a relationship between phenomena. And that relationship is always transformable, always. And, it's it's so easy to fall into situations where you are that it's not transformable. Like it needs to be. Yeah, that's the way it is. I need to get rid of it. And we have that view of ourselves as well. I am this way, and given this is possible for me, and that isn't possible for me. And, I can only interact with these types of people and not those types of people. And I can only do this and not that, right? I experienced this just recently with my daughter. So she'd been having some sleep anxiety issues for a really long time, in fact. And I've gone through various iterations of trying to force her, getting angry, just being resigned, giving up. It's like, all right, you want to sleep in my bed, just sleep in my bed then, right? But she's getting bigger, and when she moves in the bed or throws an arm over, and it freaking hurts, right? Or a knee in the back or whatever. So I kind of had to take a step back and go, hang on a minute. What clearing am I providing for my child to be able to work this out for herself? Versus the invalidation of myself as a parent or her mother as a parent and all the world of fault and blame, either that way or this way. What else might be possible? Let me take a step back here. And I thought, is this transformable? What's the context in which I'm viewing this situation from or within? And the context was, it's wrong. It shouldn't be this way. It's whatever I said about it.
You to fix.
That's right. It needs to be fixed, or it can't be fixed, or whatever. Anyway, I thought, what's a new context? Oh, anything is not only transformable, but it's a learned phenomena. Going to bed is a learned phenomena. People listening to this, and you've been having sleep issues. Sleep is a learned phenomena, just like if you need to exercise. Exercise is a learned phenomena. If you want to learn how to become a runner, there's a process that you must go through to discover for yourself the phenomena running and learn how to be effective in that exercise. Similarly, with sleep, there's practices and there's a context of learning that you could create for yourself. And maybe you've forgotten some things, you're not practiced in certain things, and maybe you just never learn. And so I said to my daughter, sweetheart, I know, would you like to learn how to go to bed on your own and sleep on your own in your own room? Would you like to learn that? Because it's a learned thing. Like, you actually just train yourself to do it. Would you like to learn? She said, of course, I want to learn, Dad. And I said, well, you can. You're a great learner. You've learned so many things throughout your life, and you learn things really, really fast. Share with me some of the things that you've been able to teach yourself and learn really quickly. And she reeled off this whole list. And I said, given that, do you think you could learn how to go to sleep, go to bed on your own and go to sleep in your own room? She said, yeah, I reckon I could. And I said, all right, just this week, why don't you just pick one or two things that you think would be part of that learning process? And why don't you just practice them? Let's just go at your pace. Within a week and a half, dude, she was taking herself to bed in her own room, sleeping the whole night through. And I did nothing. Like, it started off her taking herself to bed and falling asleep in bed. And she'd use strategies like have the TV on for a little bit and then she'd fall asleep. Admittedly, it was in my bed, and I'd go upstairs and turn the TV off, and then I'd go sleep in her bed. Right. And then she went, you know what? I'm going to go to bed in my own room. And I'm thinking, yeah, okay, let's see. So again, my asshole skepticisms came back the moment. And I thought, oh, let me go up and check. And she was asleep in her own bed and slept through the whole night. And the next day, I didn't even make a big deal of it. It was just like, honey, well done. Proud of you. She goes, yeah, I knew I could do it. And that was it.
Game over.
That was it. So anything is transformable and anything can be learned. If you create that context, now, could I have created another context? Maybe that's the one that I kind of, saw could make a difference in that point and, made a difference. So with regards to health, there's a state of resignation that people often find themselves in where they're resigned and they're cynical. And no one wants to admit that they're resigned and cynical either, ever. It really is, how we survive life and whatever we have to deal with as human beings is we make it all about our own self-importance. That's why people are just rude and obnoxious and righteous. It's all about their own self-importance, seeing what they can get away with. All right. It's point number 2. Seeing what they can get away with. People are dirty rats. You're always trying to, there's a design to this thing. Do it with integrity. Oh, yeah. People are like, oh, yeah, I'll just do it the way that it's designed. Yeah, sure. Right. That's why you have a coach, not a parole officer, but a coach to support you through the discovery process of what it takes to actually do things the way that they're designed. So if you can discover how to do this with regards to your eating habits and in relationship to restoring health and vitality, where else can you bring that disciplined skill set too in your life that it could make a difference in producing the outcomes that you really want. And the third one, so you've got, it's all about your own self-importance and seeing what you can get away with, and also how best to cover your ass. And how do people cover their ass? Well, there's always some kind of excuse, reason, explanation, invalidation of something. Or if you know that your hand was caught fair and square in the lolly jar, people create unworkable circumstances and drama in their life to be at the effect of, and you don't understand, and you need to be more compassionate. It's like, I got all of that, all those circumstances. As far as I can tell, that's life. The ordinary circumstances of life. What has that got to do with the fact that you put a meat pie in your face when you said that you wouldn't do that? Own up to it. Acknowledge it. Stop trying to hide the fact that you drank alcohol this week. And if I hear that you've done that again, and I'll be able to tell by your measurements, it'll be done between you and I. We have a blanket policy, no alcohol whilst you're in ketosis. It's so damn dangerous. Don't do it. Right. And people think that they can get away with little things, or they deserve it, or, you know, I've been so good for 2 weeks, or I've lost 4 kilos over the past 2 weeks. I deserve, you know, a happy meal.
Creep in, you know, they get away with something. They don't put it on their food diary. They don't gain any weight. They still lose, you know, a kilo that week. And they're like, well, there you go. I can get away with that. It doesn't matter if I'm 100% on protocol or not. But, you know, usually that way of being over the course of the protocol, they get to the phase 4 where they've got to be reliable in the context of freedom of choice. Good luck.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
Haven't, you know, developed that discipline over the first 3 phases of being reliable for themselves to be able to stick to what they're committed to doing and what they're do.
Yeah, I saw someone, when was it? Day before yesterday. I haven't seen for a long time. He's a former client, coaching client of mine, and he's a lawyer, and he's just a wonderful, wonderful guy. Anyway, he lost about 23, 24 kilograms, and he's maintained that healthy weight for the past 2 years.
Yeah, wow.
Just over 2 years. And anyway, we have a mutual friend, and that friend of mine I've also been supporting kind of haphazardly because he keeps coming in and out, right? And it's like, put your backside on the line, and you got to have something at stake. And unfortunately, there's nothing at stake for this guy. It's funny, he's trying to call me now, actually.
Are we live?
Weird. Isn't that weird how the universe works? He's trying to call me now. That's hilarious. So if you don't have something at stake, then the game isn't interesting enough to play it with everything that you've got. It's like playing poker for matchsticks. It's like, who cares?
Yeah.
If you put your house on the line, if you've got, you know, something at stake, hence why people have to pay a little bit of money for us to coach them. It's because your health isn't, people go, oh no, my health really matters to me. Really? You're 150 kilograms. What are you talking about? Your health really, clearly it doesn't. Now I'm committed that it does, but that's going to be a process for you to go through to discover that for yourself. And you don't know what being healthy feels like. So that's not it. What else? Oh, I want to do this for my children. How old are your children? Oh, 23 and 28. Really? Really? No, that ain't it.
Yeah.
And people, they've got nothing at stake. And you got to have something that puts your backside on the line, that such that you'll do things the way it's designed when you're tempted to do other, when you really don't feel like it, when all the circumstances around you are not supporting you to be able to do it. You've got to be the one that digs your heels in and, you know, grinds it out for no reason other than you freaking promised. And if you can discover what that takes time and time again over a long enough period of time, what you'll realize for yourself is that you're good for your word. And you can trust yourself again. When you can be that for yourself, you don't need us.
Yeah.
go die from something else than heart disease, diabetes, stroke, cancer, whatever. I don't want to see people, coming to us for us having to sort out their health issues. I want for people to be able to have access to the tools and the know-how to be able to not only handle their own health and vitality, i.e. get that oxygen mask on themselves first. And now once they're safe and sorted and handled, it's like, who else can I make a difference to? That's what, until none of this problem exists. But up until that point, I still have to fill my days trying to build facilities around the world that treat chronic disease and serious disease and cancer and all this sort of stuff. And I long for the day when we don't have to do that. And instead of having to climb the mountain of our own health and vitality, we can be climbing mountains that are bigger and better and, more innovative than just having to handle our own fat ass.
Yeah, sure. All right. Thanks for that. It's good to catch up.
I know, right?
To end on too.
Just to acknowledge you and the team. I mean, we've got a team of fully qualified nutritionists, and I love the way, and you've really been handling Simplr Health and the coaching structure whilst I've been, off doing other things around the world. And, just kudos to you and thanks and acknowledgement. And, this is, I want us to be able to have more of an impact, but, we make our offerings accessible enough and affordable enough for people who are committed and willing to be coached to be able to access it. And I'd love for it to spread enough to the point where then we're no longer needed. It's a dream of mine to put ourselves out of business, if you can call that this. I don't kind of experience it as that. I think this is kind of, it's a fulfilling, rewarding thing that I'd rather not have to do. That's the paradox.
Yeah.
Yeah. And kudos to you for working with the team to get it to the point where it's at now. And
none of it would be happening without you and putting us through the nutrition course and training all the stuff we now know and get to contribute to other people. So, massive. And in the space of all the other shit you're up to, as far as those treatment facilities and treating cancer and regenerative medicine and all that sort of stuff, it's insane. When I hear not just people trying to lose weight, but just people in general saying they've just got no time. Every time they say that, I think of you and just go, dude, flying around the world. He's a single parent. He's got a business of coaching Simplr Health. He's doing, what are you talking about? You don't have time, or you're too busy.
You can look. I can only do all this if I make sure I have some discipline around my own health and well-being. Otherwise, my brain wouldn't be able to handle it. And as you know, and a lot of people that follow us know, I have been, a couple of years ago had a significant head injury, and so that did affect dramatically my cognitive prowess, and I've still have to manage that with a great deal of discipline. And the week, when was it? I've forgotten. When was I in Japan? Was it last week? It was last week I was in Japan, and the week before that I knew I had a big week in Japan, so I was in brain and body health in Gladesville every day that week prior to Japan, in the hyperbaric oxygen tank, making sure that I was at optimal health. So when I was there on the ground at Kyoto University or in Tokyo with the top professors, I was on point every minute of every day that I was there, and it made a big difference. And we'll keep pushing, and pretty soon I'll be in Jakarta next week, and hopefully, fingers crossed, we're sorting out the last bits of detail with regards to the promise of what I've been able to put together for the world, which is, hopefully it'll be, we'll get the go ahead, and we'll set up the facility in Bali that will be able to provide innovative cellular therapies treating cancer and also degenerative diseases. And look, if we don't, we'll divert our attention elsewhere and we'll build elsewhere. And, there is no end to this. We'll just keep going.
That's what's great about you. I saw an Instagram post the other day, speaking of social media, and there was like, you swiped and there was a different quote from some Usain Bolt and Arnold Schwarzenegger and someone else. And it was all along the lines of, a Michael Jordan one was, I've failed more times than anyone. That's why I was successful and things like that. And I'm just going, Kilby. Kilby doesn't give up, this bastard. Kilby. Keeps going.
I've quit. I've quit before, and suffered the consequences of not being straight and authentic about that for a long time. And I just resolved for myself, I'm not going to be that person anymore. And if it matters and it's big enough and inspiring enough, I'm just going to keep pushing to find a way. So, die trying.
All right, guys, thank you for tuning in. I hope everyone got something out of that. Any questions or anything, feel free to post underneath and let us know. And as always, if you're dealing with something around health, whether it's, the issues we've spoken about today, whether it's eczema and reproductive issues or, hives and things like that, it doesn't matter what you've been dealing with. We're treating an underlying issue here of what sets all these motions off eventually anyway. So get in contact and see what we can do for you. Talk soon. Thanks, Dean.